right. Anthony, Rachel, Marion, you're all here. Yep, all good. Welcome. Why did we have that be in the middle?
Yeah, she is. I think she is. Or am I getting maybe I'm getting a cab.
So we have to bear with what's sitting in the middle there. It looks a bit unusual, but if something gets fixed up. So it's kind of right in the way, but anyway, it's the way it is. Right.
But we can go through together if you want.
Anthony or Marion?
Mr. Chair, just before we start, I'd like to introduce Rachel Hume to the committee. Rachel is the Acting Team Leader Portfolio Review. She's working in place of Letitia Edwards while she's on maternity leave, and you'll see probably more and more of Rachel in the future.
Yes, good morning.
Welcome.
The Chair and the committee. So you have the report in front of you. I'll just go through some key messages. 4 properties presented to you today. 132 Green Lane East is a car park leased exclusively to the adjoining businesses. AT have assessed the property and found it's not required for transport infrastructure purposes. Through the rationalisation process, Panuku has identified it as having potential for an alternate public work, that being urban renewal, given its size, location and proximity to public transport. If it is approved for disposal for housing and urban renewal purposes, Panuku will ensure that any development is in line with housing outcomes of the Panuku's SOI objectives and the Auckland Plan. The Panuku Board has the delegated authority to approve the terms and conditions. There is commercial interest from 2 iwi groups. We will follow up if approved for disposal. The next property, 28 Lockwood Ave, Papakura. If you recall, it was presented in October 2017. However, Panuku were tasked with going away to better formulate a response from our mana whenua consultation. We have gone back to all the iwi entities who registered interests. One iwi entity has advised that its interest has been withdrawn following a site visit and assessment of the property. It's of low value to them, so they're no longer interested. However, there is commercial interest from other iwi entities, and the current tenant is interested in acquiring it if approved for disposal. The other 2 sites are vacant sites. They were originally vested with the legacy city councils upon subdivision. Edward Freeman Place is a local purpose road reserve. Pars Cross Road is a road reserve. When assessed against current needs, they don't provide current or planned transport infrastructure use. They're not a priority for retention. When assessed against council's parks and open space acquisition policy and the open space provision policy, there is commercial interest from iwi and an adjoining landowner in acquiring one of the properties. The Henderson Massey Local Board endorsed the reserve revocation and the proposed disposal earlier on this year. Ready to take any questions? Thank you.
I'm happy to move, Mr. Chairman.
Just of interest, the Green Lane property, had they been paying rent on that?
Yes, it is on a month-by-month basis. The previous tenant, you'll be aware, was Nosh.
Yeah.
Nosh went into receivership, and basically Panuku had to write off that debt of the outstanding rent.
All right. Councillor Walker.
Sure. The property at Green Lane, the Albert Eden Local Board resolved that its preferred outcome is to land bank the site for future town centre development as identified in the unitary plan.
Bring the speaker closer, Wayne. Please.
Is there any comment on that?
Yes, through the chair, we did go back and consult with the local board. We did provide advice along the lines that council can't hold land bank, or can't land bank land when there's no identified strategic purpose. Council's chief planning office was consulted as part of the rationalisation process. They didn't identify a need to require, didn't identify a requirement to retain in council ownership. And when we gave that advice back to the local board, they then advised they wouldn't oppose a disposal.
And the other question I've got, just in terms of development of these sites, is Panuku proposing to leverage any particular development so that we actually achieve some additional income from the development itself, or are we simply going to flog it off?
Oh, if you don't mind, I'll just defer to Marion here.
So we will be looking for development outcomes on the site at 132 Green Lane East. Part of the process there will be to we'll encumber the title to ensure that the developer undertakes the development in line with what we would like to be delivered on that site. And we will ensure that council is sufficiently protected should anything happen with that developer. Council will have step-in rights to ensure that basically any development that we would look to happen on that site happens.
My question is around whether there's an opportunity for us to leverage an outcome to avail ourselves of some of the development as compared to just selling the land, because this is quite a strategic position and there aren't that many properties available in an area like this that come up.
So again, through the property will be assessed for development outcomes. Should the council wish to retain any part of that land for development purposes, we can do that. But we would look at this point to obtaining housing outcomes and other urban renewal outcomes on that site. So we can do that if we wish to do so. Yes.
Councillor Lee.
Yes, good morning. The Ranui and Henderson properties are gazetted under the Reserves Act, presumably as recreation reserves, or
Through the chair, one is a road reserve, another one is a local purpose road reserve. They're not recreation reserves under the Reserves Act.
they're road reserves?
Yes, that's
under
correct.
the Reserves Act.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have
Councillor
you
Cooper.
moved the recommendations, Mr Chairman?
Move, yep, second.
I'm happy to second.
Councillor Holt. Right, well, there's no further discussion on that, so I'll put those recommendations A and B. All those in favour?
Aye.